Do you listen to your heart or follow rules? Let's explore. Imagine a government officer in charge of social welfare. An elderly homeless couple walks into your office. They are frail, clearly in need, and claim to be over 60 years old, making them eligible for senior citizens' pensions. But there's a problem. They have no official documents to prove their age or identity. The law is very clear here. No valid documents, no pension benefits. But if you deny them, they could end up hungry and without shelter. So what do? Strictly follow rules or make an exception, risking setting a precedent. This dilemma brings us to care ethics, a moral philosophy perspective that challenges the rule-based morality, and instead it talks about compassion and care as a basis of morality. This dilemma, what to prioritize, rules or compassion, is at the heart of ethics of care. But the larger question is, how it all start? To understand this evolution, we have to go back to 1980s, when psychologist Carl Gilligan challenged how moral development was understood. Carl Gilligan challenged Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development, which emphasized that ethical maturity of an individual is completely based on justice and impartiality rather than care and relationships. Carl Gilligan argued that morality is not just about rules and rights, it's also about empathy, compassion, responsibility, and relationships with others. Following Carl Gilligan, scholars like Nell Noddings, Virginia Held, Joanne Fronto expanded the scope of work, ethics of care, from personal relationships to governance, public policy, and social justice also. In short, care ethics emerged as a response to traditional theories of deontology and consequentialism. So what sets care ethics apart? Let's break it down to three key areas. Most traditional theories emphasize on universal rules. For instance, Kant emphasized on this universal rule of always speaking the truth. Care ethics, on the other hand, emphasized that morality is contextual. Imagine your friend is running away from dangerous people and they meet you and they ask you where your friend is. If you believe in strict Kantian ethics, you will tell them the truth. But on the other hand, care ethicists will argue that the moral thing to do is to protect your friend. Many traditional theories believe that emotions are obstacles to morality. Care ethics disagrees. They believe feelings like compassion, empathy, sensitivity are not distractions. They are in fact moral guides. Think how naturally we care for family members, friends, even community also. So caring comes naturally to us. So feelings like caring and empathy are not irrational. They are foundations of morality. Care ethics rejects the idea that we are all self-sufficient individuals. Instead, they believe that morality happens within relationships because we're all interconnected. This is why care ethics focuses on relationships, and the relationships can be anything. It can be parent-child, it can be between friends, it can be between citizen and a state also. Care ethics isn't simply about saying we should care. In fact, it identifies three forms of caring. The first and the most important form of caring is caring for someone, which is more active, direct, where you're more concerned about the person's well-being and welfare. When I say caring for someone, just think of a nurse who stays extra hours just to comfort a terminally ill patient. A very active, engaged form of caring. Then there is caring about something, which means you are interested or concerned about a cause, not in an active way. For instance, you might care about climate change. So what do? You just repost an article on social media. You don't take any direct moral responsibility. Finally, there is caring after someone. This is about taking care of someone in a very detached manner. Something that a professional bureaucrat would do or a public servant would do when they deliver services. Now, here what is missing is the deep personal connection. Think of government officials processing welfare applications. They just follow a system. There's a process. They don't involve themselves in struggles of individuals. Now, you all may think this sounds interesting, but how can we apply care ethics in real life decisions? Let's explore few areas here. In healthcare, should doctors focus on strict medical guidelines or should they focus also on emotional well-being? Care ethics argues that relationship with patients is also important. In fact, they believe in compassionate, patient-centered care rather than rigid rule following. In business, companies should focus more on profits or people. Care ethics will argue that companies need to focus, or the CEOs need to be more people-oriented. They should be focusing on relationship with their own people, that are employees, the staff, the customers, the various stakeholders, even community at large. A fine example I can think of is Merck's ivermectin donation program for combating river blindness. While making policies, should the policymaker focus on rights and justice or on human needs and well-being? If you're a care ethicist, you'll strongly argue in favor of establishing a caring state. You'll focus on needs and aspirations and well-being. When it comes to law enforcement, a very interesting question. Should a police officer be strict only, or the police officer should be strict and sensitive? If you are a care ethicist, you'll argue for the police officer being sensitive and strict. Of course, not everyone agrees with care ethics. Let's look at a few criticisms. Critics argue that care ethics is too subjective. If morality is based on relationship, how to decide what is fair in a larger society? In fact, in the absence of universal moral rules, decision-making can become too inconsistent and arbitrary. Some critics point out that care ethics reinforces gender stereotypes, that women are more caring and men focus only on justice. When it comes to criminal justice, care ethicists argue that we have to balance both fairness, punishment on one side, and rehabilitation and care on the other side. But critics point out how to balance both. Despite all the criticisms, thinkers like Virginia Held and Joanne Toronto argue that care ethics is not an alternative to traditional approaches, it's a complement to it. So to recap, care ethics, by focusing on emotions, relationships, and interdependence, challenged the traditional approaches to morality, which was exclusively focusing on abstract moral rules. Despite the criticism, care ethics does make sense. Why? Because it's a wonderful complement to deontology and consequentialism. So now that we have explored the nuances of care ethics, let me leave with a small question. And the question is, how do you think care ethics can help in our daily lives when it comes to ethical decision making? Do share your thoughts in the comments section. So long, happy learning.